Okay, hey class, I wanted to give you another feedback video because while many of you wrote about your experience with academic writing, like essays and things like that, a lot of you shared experience with creative writing, which is very cool. And so I just wanted to respond to and highlight some of that. Because creative writing and academic writing, while they have different goals, the processes are going to be a little bit different, but you still need to kind of do a lot of the same rhetorical things to communicate, to connect with the reader, to let them know where you're coming from. So it's always interesting to think about creative writing versus essay writing or school writing. Outside of school and work, theater is my go-to hobby. In my acting class, I have had several opportunities to write short plays that my classmates perform. I would continue to write until I finished the play or ran out of creative juice. Once the play was done, I would slowly go back through and proofread or edit. This, however, was not the final step. Because it was a script, it had to be formatted in a specific way. My final step was to format the play in a complex yet easy to understand way so my fellow classmates could read their lines with ease. And so this is interesting because we have a different kind of writing process. There's still a free writing or a rough draft version, and then there's a period when you're rewriting and editing, right? And then, kind of interestingly, there's also a specific format that has to happen in playwriting. Where do the stage directions go? How do the names of characters get formatted? So it's interesting that this is an example of a very specific format that's required, but in a creative field, not in like a MLA format or something like that. Others of you wrote about experiencing and connecting with writing about literature, but in a high school class. So here's an example. There have been many different types of writing I've encountered throughout my school career. In middle school, we spent a semester covering storytelling, exposition, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and how and where to use figurative language. Freshman year, I studied poetry and learned how to determine different formats of poetry, the type of rhyme scheme it uses, if any. And then last semester, I had writing assignments for Art 111 where we debated what makes particular art good or bad in our opinion. And so this is interesting because, again, we see different uses of specific formats, specific genres. So writing a play is one genre. Writing poetry that has a required rhyme scheme, that's almost like a subgenre in a genre. And so some of these things about, which shape does the paper have to take, which shape does the writing have to take, that exists in whatever genre you're working in. And then finally, we see in here that this writer has had experience with using their own opinion and being persuasive. So what makes art good or bad? That sounds like something where they're making an argument and they're basing that on their own opinion and experience. And that sounds kind of like what we're going to be doing in our first essay, where you will not be doing research, but you will be backing up your assertion with reasons. Let's take a look at our last creative writer. Most of my experience with the writing process is through the science fiction fantasy writing that I do as a hobby. My process is generally to thought dump or, quote, word vomit ideas on a page, followed by outlining my ideas for the storyline. After the outline, I begin researching as I write, since this makes it less likely that I research things unnecessarily. I wait until after I finish my draft to do any major editing or revising. I have found that using Grammarly word processor helps with keeping my writing clean as I am typing and helping to identify certain issues as I edit. And so this is very interesting because while this person is writing science fiction, they're really describing the same writing process that we're going to use. A thought dump or a word vomit on a page, that's free writing. That's brainstorming. That's free association. And then creating an outline so you can take all those ideas and whittle them down into the ones that make sense together. Doing research as you go. So you're identifying needs that you have on the research side and then fulfilling those needs in an efficient way. And then keeping tabs on what's not as exciting but is necessary, right? Good grammar, good style, being clear, making sure that your reader understands what you are saying, making sure that they get out of the words what you believe you're putting into them.